Hello, welcome to the Executive Dialogue on Maritime TV. I'm your host, Ezinne Azuna. Today on the Executive Dialogue, we'll be speaking with an expert, a renowned expert in the industry, a lawyer, a senior advocate of Nigeria. Are you guessing? Well, he's no other person but the senior partner, Olisa Agbakoba Legal, Dr. Olisa Agbakoba. You're welcome to the show, sir.
Yeah.
Recently in the industry, we've seen a lot of activities that seem to have placed us in the front burner, sir. We have drawn the attention of policymakers, we've drawn the attention of power players, at our events, at NIMASA awards and all whatnot. Do you think this is a good development, sir?
Very bad. Absolutely atrocious. What would you be doing awards for when there's nothing to show? The maritime industry ranks just outside the hydrocarbons as the one that has the greatest impact on the economy. But the maritime industry is practically dead and comatose. So what would you be giving anybody any awards? So I see all these awards and I wonder what's the point? And I wonder those who even go to receive it, why they think it makes them feel big or good. It's nothing to cheer about. That's the truth. Nothing.
So if you were to review last year,
right,
or the past 4 years, would you say we've made any progress?
No, because the Papa roads are all jammed and blocked. And this is supposed to be the country's main port. So that is a thermometer that tells you the sort of policy attention that is being paid to the maritime industry. If the ports are dysfunctional and not working, and there's no port development policy, I would think that the government should realize now that port development isn't its business. What government should do is to separate port development policy from port development and then invite the private sector to play an active role in building ports. Because the Apapa port is dead, Calabar is dead, Port Harcourt was built in 1913, so we really have no ports, which is why ships prefer to go to Cotonou. We are the largest in the Central West African region, but no one wants to come here. What's the reason? So those are the sorts of policy issues I would like to see government engage.
So in other words, you think that the absence of a port development policy is the bane of our economy or the maritime sector?
It's a problem. The port, don't forget that port development is only one component of the larger maritime picture, but it's so crucial. So if we're not getting that one right, then there's a problem. And then don't forget that the Port and Harbour Bill, which we assisted to drop 13 years ago, is still unpassed. So why would an investor want to put his money? You see what's happening with AP Moller. It's not surprising, because AP Moller would say to itself, if I want to put in $1 billion in Apapa Ports, what's the guarantee that I have a strong stake? Because there's no legal framework. There isn't any port development policy. So it constrains them from investing. And it took the letter to them to shake them up, which is good. But that's only half and half. If you want port development to flow well, go to Dubai and copy what they've done. We need a concessioning model. And we need our port policy to reflect that government's role is to be a landlord. All the services in the ports, concession off. You will see a big difference.
So you're saying that Nigerian ports is not landlord now? Because we say that...
Is it landlord? They're still servicing. They're still servicing. They're doing pilotage. They're doing pilotage. They're doing harbors. They're doing all sorts of things. So it ought to be. That's what the old MPA Act, which is still in use, provided. It made the MPA landlord and service. But when privatization came up and BPE played a role, then BPE concessioned off the service aspects. But it's not clear to me, how far MPA can go, whether is it strictly landlord or service. So that is not clear. So because it's all gray, investors not coming in. So we need to clarify all this in a new law.
Would like you to also speak to the need to tidy up legal frameworks on every project in the industry.
Just take maritime security. We've gone back to, say, 10 years. Government has spent huge amounts of money on maritime security. Yet the International Bureau on Maritime rates us very low. Right now, I think we're one of the most dangerous ports. Before, Somalia was the dangerous, area. Now it's the Gulf of Guinea, where pirates are operating without recourse. Why? Because government has no policy on maritime security. It's not the business of NEMASA, the old NMA, to undertake armed security work. They don't have the skills. So we did presidential, all the titles, I've forgotten all of them, PICOMs, but I'm sure you remember PICOMs. Billions went into PICOMs, it failed. We did that, we did the Naval Joint Navy, blah, blah, all sorts of monies. We did Tompolo, who got the contract, Global West, billions and billions. Whereas all you need to do is to look at the example of what other countries do, because in the maritime area, you have two kinds of areas you're looking at. You've got the green policy and the blue policy. The green policy is manned by a Coast Guard. They have the skills and the Coast Guard can actually be a division of the Navy. So it's a standing, legally established structure. It's not necessary to have NEMASA, so all right, we want Marine Police, we want this, we want that. Once the guy in charge goes, like Mr. Peter said, gone now, the entire thing changes. So legal structure has permitted the huge problems in our industry. And I'm just using the maritime security situation as an example. The other example would be, why is it in spite of 13 years of the cabotage law that we don't have the ships? Why? It's because when the Cabotage Act was passed, I told the late Ojo Madueke, I'm thinking that NEMASA can do this. Then it was called NMA. Because the work they have is already massive. They have the work of ship development and cargo generation. That is enough. But they went on to acquire labor, Joma Lake, swallowing everything, government inspector of shipping. It's too much. That thing called NEMASA needs to be decoupled.
So you're calling for specialization in the industry?
No, I'm calling for, rethinking NEMASA's mandate and to say, do they have the capacity? And if they don't, what do we do? So in other words, it might be that those who decide policy may say, in the, 10 years NEMASA has existed or more, where is the achievement? I asked Mr. whoever he was as DG a while ago, Dosumu. This speech you are making today, can you point to one person who you have supported to buy a ship? That's the measure of the success. How many DGs? Okay, all right, now there's a new DG. My question to him would be, in 4 years, when we look back and we say, this DG grew Nigeria's tonnage. That's it. Why are they not growing the tonnage? Then look at maritime finance. They have got no skills. So the money is sitting in NEMASA. It's sat in there as the vessel. They keep giving acronyms, but the money is not coming out. So there's a huge policy problem. And I think it's only by understanding the role of policy and legal frameworks can we resolve all these problems.
Nigeria, we have a lot of imports flowing in every day, and it's in the past 4, 5, 6 years, we've had to do 100% physical examinations. We do not have scanners. So what do you think? Is It doesn't speak trade facilitation, does it?
Just don't go there. Scanner is a problem. It beats me. It is not as if it's too expensive. So that tells you that I just don't know. I'm lost for words when you raise this issue of scanner. Because the other day, Hadiza was at a government program and she was seemingly also frustrated. She said, can you imagine we don't have scanners? So we have to do 100% physical inspection. Do you know the time it takes to get that? And do you know the knock-on effect on issues of demurrage, delays, and all that? So you can see that we have a big policy issue, which is why I return to my favorite subject. Gbemi Saraki is now Minister of State. They didn't call her Maritime. Why can't we have a Maritime Minister?
The minister gave her the maritime sector to
No. It's not the minister to give. It has to be an institutional office. You see, this is our way of doing things in which, there is so much discretion, doesn't help. You wouldn't say that President Buhari gave Mr. Malami the Attorney General office to handle. No, the Attorney General's office is constitutionally recognized. So I think the Minister of Maritime Services should be administratively recognized. Well, we know that is a ministry, just like you have Minister of Finance. Policy considerations can take place at a much higher level. Technically speaking, one of the highest players in the maritime industry on the government side is the Director of Maritime Services, but it's too low to influence anything. It doesn't even go to cabinet meeting. So to deal with the policy challenge is first to say, how do we articulate the policy problems at the level of the federal government? How high should that be? I go for Minister for Maritime Services.
We've had situations where public funds have been used to acquire various things in the sector, and these things are constantly abandoned, and not used.
It's usual now.
So, for example, we have the customs anti-smuggling boats lying at Marina. How can maritime stakeholders hold public office holders accountable?
See, it pulls back to a larger issue of governance. We're not dealing with a governance challenge. The typical way that a government runs is to recognize the difference between policy, execution, and regulation. So the minister's work is policy. The minister, well, with all due respect to Fashola, who's carrying around them flash drive of all the roads in Nigeria that he wants to construct, that's not his job. That's not his job. His job is policy. Then you have the executive agencies. So when the executive agencies know that the buck stops on their table, they're empowered to work. But when the minister is constantly interfering, so the executive agencies don't feel any responsibility. They don't feel, the buck stops on my table, so I must get this done, which is what I've been calling for from a long time. In the UK, there is no way that the Secretary for Transport would be building roads. There's no way. He'll take part in the design of road projects, but that's it. At the end of which it will go to the executive agency. Just take coronavirus. All countries are showing us the head of their medical agencies. In England, it's called the chief medical officer. Where's ours? He keeps seeing the minister. That's not his job. It's not his job. It is the chief medical officer whose job it is to carry the burden of, or the other one in the UK called the Public Health England. The responsible officer can tell you how many masks have been imported. Now the minister can't. So policy and execution have blended to the point where the minister is so busy that all these things you have related, he or she has no clue. So in order to return to proper government, we must understand that there are three key things in governance: policy, execution, and regulation.
It's a new year, obviously, and the year is warming up. A lot of activities and new developments already in the maritime industry. What would your advice be to the sector this year?
I don't understand why our government looks at crude oil as if it's a demigod. So we all say, 1 barrel of crude is so much. But there are 34 other value-added chains. Some technical, some service. For instance, you have law, banking, you have insurance, and you have shipping. So Amechi told the NMPC GMD, I've been trying to start a national carrier, hoping to realize our national cargo has the groundswell. But you won't give me the crude. Yet there's a law. You see the problem? Yet there's a law that says Nigerians should be carrying. So those are the problems. Do you know what it is? If Nigeria were to suddenly have 100-man fleet, employment, revenue, if Nigeria were to bank its money, when I was on the Rebadu Commission set up by Desani around the fuel subsidy issue, we were shocked to our bones. There was a former TBN director of finance whose responsibility was tracking oil money. It'll sit in foreign banks and they don't give us the interest. Sometimes we don't remember to ask them. So we're losing revenue. Why don't we put it in our own banks?
Wow, it's been an interesting time with you. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Executive Dialogue, sir. Well, this brings us to the end of this episode of the Executive Dialogue. I hope it was quite interesting. Until we come your way again, I remain your host, Ezinne Azuna. Do stay blessed.